All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you to Fundación Bankinter, and also to you, Frances, for preparing this with so much care. I've been invited to discuss with these two gentlemen on collective governance. The first thing I'd like to say is that, listening to all other speakers today and yesterday, I feel that if circular economy and desalination and sustainable water resource management and sustainability as such are so good, why, and I think they are, why aren't they happening spontaneously? And some people may think actually that it's just because we're facing financial constraints, which I don't think is the case now. We live in an unprecedented fiscal stimulus from the public side perspective, and there's also an excess of liquidity in international financial markets from a private perspective. So I don't think that's actually the case. It may well be the case that we don't channel properly some financial resources to where they're needed, but I don't think this is a binding constraint these days. The same applies to technology. I don't think we have major technological drawbacks in order to progress in all the challenges that we've been facing, that could actually be summarized in terms of ensuring long-term water security within a context of climate change adaptation. So where are we failing? And my point is that governance failures are at the core of the challenges that we face in terms of both water services delivery and sustainable water resources management. So the point I want to make about this, this morning, Ian Barker, my friend and fellow colleague at the OECD Water Governance Initiative, prompted this, is when we've been discussing at that policy forum, a worldwide policy forum hosted by the OECD for the last 10 years or more, when you actually want to address governance, I've been through like 3 waves of discussions. The first one was saying water governance, sound water governance is very much about transparency, accountability, meaningful stakeholder engagement, and integrity, so the lack of corruption. And it's not that I'm going to downplay these issues, at all. I think they're critical. But what we found out, looking at different experiences worldwide, is that even in those places where you have these 4 elements, these are bad, necessary conditions, but they're not sufficient conditions. So there was a further attempt at the OECD to say, no, water governance is very much about having a sound institutional setup. So you need to have everyone doing what they're best at, And you need to avoid redundancies, you need to be able to, to have proper legal mandates and all that. And again, we felt that was bad and necessary condition. So what's my interpretation and what's the interpretation of the OECD Water Governance Initiative today as to water governance? That it very much has to do with mastering complexity and uncertainty along the lines of what Ian was explaining this very morning. And what we mean by mastering complexity is that you need to address issues like creating the enabling factors for the uptake of innovations beyond technological innovation. It's not just technological innovation. We need financial innovation, institutional innovation. Sometimes we have institutions, for instance, in order to deal with climate change adaptation, we have 19th century institutions dealing with 21st century challenges, And this gap is quite a drawback. At the same time, I think that we need to address the issue of sectoral policy coordination. This is not about breaking silos, because silos sometimes are a fantastic source of information and knowledge. It's about having dialogue with each other. Sectoral policies dialogue with each other. At the same time, I think there's need for more holistic financing frameworks. And something that is really critical, and I'm going to provide some illustrations on this, very practical illustrations, down-to-earth illustrations, on the need to redesign incentives, Because to me, governance is not just about software, it's not just about, soft issues, it's about actually how we make the decisions we make, right? So the issue is, there's a first challenge that has to do precisely with acknowledging that these challenges are collective action ones. And therefore, adopting a sectoral biased approach or a sub-national approach will never deliver properly. So I think we need to go beyond that. But let me just mention some of the issues, and it's been pretty easy to think about my talking points just listening to you. For instance, yesterday we heard a lot about the potential for untapped water use efficiency gains in agriculture. This is a critical issue, okay? But if you look at water demand management in agriculture, one of the things that you see is that there's been massive investment in many countries, using taxpayer money in order to modernize irrigation systems. This is the right thing to do, we know how to do it, technologically it's not rocket science, But once you do that, you end up finding out something that we economists knew for more than 100 years, It was described by Stanley Jevons as the Jevons paradox, I'll try to explain this, You go from gravity irrigation to drip irrigation, you become really efficient, you save up to 80–90% of water against baseline, that's great at a plot level. But when you aggregate those water savings, you realize that at the watershed level, you end up using even more water than before. How come? Well, we know this from the energy sector, we know this from fueling vehicles as well. Why did we overlook this in the water sector? Because it's not that I'm saying that we should not be investing in terms of water use efficiency. What I'm saying is that we should have encompassing measures to offset a rebound effect. And this rebound effect can have different manifestations. One is sometimes the scale of the activity outweighs individual efficiency gains at a plot level. Sometimes through water productivity, people are interested in intensifying their culture. Sometimes it is the case that farmers will change one basic assumption that policymakers do never take into account, that if they're more efficient, they're actually prone to change their crop mix. And when they change their crop mix, you end up using overall more water, no matter how efficient you are at the plot level. So all this, we knew. The fact that we are overlooking at all, or at least downplaying some of these issues, is a governance failure. It's because we don't make decisions in the right way. Let me just give you another explanation. There was a very insightful exchange yesterday between David Zetlak and Alejandro Jimenez from Acciona here. And I think, David, you were absolutely right when you said, well, that idea of a 50-cent desalination is quite a dream, right? Okay. And he explained, and he said, it's not in every place. That's actually something attainable, but under certain conditions, etc. I was tempted to take the floor and to say something, but I knew that I could take the floor today. So the point I wanted to make about that is, regardless of whether desalination is at 50 cents, $2 or $3 or more, what's really critical is that it's struggling all over the world to find an effective demand. And the reason why it struggles to find an effective demand is because farmers, for instance, in Mediterranean basins, can actually pay just for the energy cost of pumping water out. They don't pay for water, they pay just for the energy cost of pumping water out. And what they do is actually to pay 10 cents of a euro, right? So it doesn't make sense for them, even if that aquifer is overexploited, contaminated by nitrates, with high levels of salinity, etc. But in the end, they rather go for that financially, than actually going for the desalinated water. So, do we have any challenge technologically in order to decrease the marginal cost of delivering a cubic meter of desalinated water? I don't think we do. There's been significant progress. There's fast development in this area. So what really matters is that we need to redesign incentives, that we should actually be thinking in terms of how we remunerate each one of the water supply sources in order for these new resources to actually penetrate the markets in a more effective way. And that discussion is neither financial in itself, is neither economic in itself, it's not technological, it's on governance, it's on how we make the decisions we make. So this is a governance failure that I wanted to mention. Another one is around reclaimed water for reuse. If you try to find good examples of circular economy in the water sector, it's pretty easy. But most of them have a common feature. They happen at a very small scale. At best is a wastewater treatment plant or a demo site, sometimes a living lab in a catchment. And of course, we aim at having like high scale examples in LA or, so there are some examples in which this could actually happen at a larger scale, but it's not the most frequent feature of these projects. So, do we know how to do that? Again, it's membrane technology, advanced water treatments, so we know how to do that. The problem is that we have not developed the market for water to be reused or for critical solids to be used as nutrients for fertilizing crops, or the surplus biogas that is not used for the self-sufficiency of the plant and can actually be sold back to the grid at feed-in tariffs. So unless we work on the institutional innovation and we do create those markets, and one more that I don't want to forget, it was mentioned yesterday by Pedro Simon, which is actually creating a real market for the agricultural output produced using reused water. So unless we create at least these 4 markets, technology will never deliver, or will never deliver in order to address a societal impact in a meaningful way. A third example that I wanted to mention is in terms of municipal water supply. There's so much talking as to the level of the tariff. Why? Because we say we're sophisticated people, we're sensitive enough to understand that low-income households, especially in low-income countries, may struggle to pay for water services. Fair enough. I agree with that. But why so much discussion on the level of the tariff? Why so little discussion on the actual structure and the design of tariffs? And why so little discussion specifically about the elephant in the room? And the elephant in the room is relative and absolute poverty in many countries, and it has to do with people exposed to social exclusion. And this has nothing to do with the actual cost of delivering water services. So don't expect the water sector to solve a major social issue in advanced economies, emerging economies, and low-income economies. You should tackle that, and this is state-of-the-art literature, you should tackle that through social policy, income policy, and macroeconomic performance, not through lowering the tariff levels. And the last point that I want to make is in terms of the potential use of new digital technologies for the delivery of municipal water services. If you use technologies, again, this is not rocket science anymore. The use of microsensors, providing us with real-time information on our consumer profiles, whatever you do in terms of big data management, a wide range of artificial intelligence opportunities, whatever will tell us about, cloud computing, that's all there. It's already available. My point is, can we actually think of that system working out and providing me with real-time information about my consumer profile? And what happens if I live in a city in the world in which I am extremely inefficient in my use of water, but David is extremely efficient, and we are charged at the same rate? That's ridiculous. He won't have any incentive to remain a good boy. I won't have any incentive to catch up with him. See my point? So this whole thing about redesign incentives is not, from my viewpoint, just kind of an economic bubble. I think it does have to do with how we make the decisions we make, and that's the point I wanted to make about collective governance.